Tim Grover, a speaker who has come all the way from Chicago to be here on the Gold Coast for AREC 2025. Thank you so much for joining me.
Elizabeth, it's an honor. Thank you.
Fresh off the plane as well, so thank you. I appreciate that. It's a long way to come. First trip to Australia.
It is a first trip, but so far it's been absolutely amazing.
Is there anything in particular any box you want to tick while you're here? Seeing a crocodile or a koala or something?
Well, I want to check as many boxes as I can, so I don't have any expectations. We're just going to go with the flow.
Okay. Now, I must confess, I have no interest in basketball at all, but I did finally just watch The Last Dance, which is of course about Michael Jordan's career and life. And what I did take out of it, I became quite fascinated with it, was just the whole win at all cost attitude, which I'm sure, comes into what you speak about when you come to these events, that mindset. But what was it that separated other athletes that you trained from people like Jordan and Kobe Bryant?
Well, there was a lot of things that separate those two individuals. One of the things that would stand out would be resiliency, the ability to always be in the moment. They never thought about the previous moment or the next moment. They were always in the moment, and being able not to motivate their teammates, but being able to elevate them. And there's a huge difference between motivation and elevation. That's something I will talk about later on. But that's the one thing that they really did. They knew there was a price that needed to be paid for winning. And they were willing to pay that price, and they needed everybody else to pay that price also.
Do you think that's a healthy approach? Do you think winning is everything?
Well, actually, I asked Kobe Bryant in my book, Winning, I said, describe winning. What does winning mean to you? And he said, winning is everything.
Wow.
So, listen, how do you feel when you win? It's an unbelievable feeling. I don't know if you have children, but how do you feel when your kids win? Or you see somebody you know? It's an unbelievable feeling. It's a feeling you can't. When your teammates win, when other individuals, it's a feeling that's just, it's about everything. But
then if you lose, how do you manage the lows that come with that when you're so used to, I guess, the dopamine hit of winning?
Well, here's the thing. It's not a hit of winning, of dopamine hit of winning. You stay at that level. And you can't have winning without losing.
Okay.
They go side and side. They're partners.
Right.
They're in partners. You know you're going to lose.
Yeah.
That is a part of winning. So when you lose, you don't get real low. When you win, you don't get real high. So I always say, when you win, I said, listen, don't celebrate hard, but don't celebrate long. Because winning's only job is to replace you. Once you've won, winning's already looking for the next individual. After you open the champagne, after you have the celebration and everything, winning wants to push you off the pedestal and replace you with somebody else. And are you willing to do more than what you did previously to get to that next win?
Was there ever an athlete who you just couldn't break through to, or whose transformation surprised you?
Well, there's what I do when work with athletes, I take them to their maximum potential. Not everybody's maximum is the same. So what we try to do is we try to elevate everybody's skill set. We try to elevate their mindset. Listen, am I perfect? Absolutely not. Have I missed on athletes that I thought they had something inside of them? And the more I pushed them, the more I tried to elevate them, the farther they got away from winning. My techniques and the way my methodology it didn't work with that individual.
Okay.
And I've had more successes than I've had failures. But when I've had my failures, I tried to adapt more to that individual instead of going with what I know and what I knew. And I would say winning makes you different, and different scares people, but it attracts the right ones.
That's a good one. Yeah. So I read that you were rejected multiple times by the Bulls when you reached out to them early in your career to try and work with them, and then eventually got success sort of at a time when the Bulls were up against the Pistons, and Jordan was kind of getting physically bashed around a bit, so you got through there. But obviously that shows persistence. But where do you think you'd be today had you not kept trying to get in, contact the Bulls about getting that breakthrough career moment?
I would have still been in the same place I'm in now, just with different individuals. When I was going to school, I told everybody I'm going to train professional athletes. That's what I'm going to do.
Wow.
That was my career goal, and I wasn't going to let anybody distract me or deter me from that. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make it happen. I don't know how I'm going to make it happen, but I'm going to make it happen. And the minute I spoke those words, I put my life plan in together to achieve that or get to it as close as possible. You know, and yes, I was rejected many times, but here's the thing about rejection. You have to master the art of rejection. You're going to get rejected. How many times have you been rejected? How many times have you been rejected?
Many.
Yes. All right. And you can't dwell on those rejections, because here's what I look at a rejection. All right. When you get rejected, you're in a no worse spot than you were before. You're in the exact same spot. Now, it's only upward. Like if they say yes, or you're able to open the door, or somebody opens the door for you, you're closer to wherever you want to be. If you get rejected, you're not anywhere. You haven't taken steps back. You're in the same spot.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You're in the same spot.
Yeah.
All right, now.
It's just being able to get up from that rejection, isn't it?
Yeah.
Keep going.
Right, and there's a difference about how to get up. And what I always say is, when you get up, don't rush to get up. Because if you rush to get up, you're going to be the exact same individual that fell down. Understand why you got rejected. Understand why you fell. So when you stand up, you're a different person. There's something different about you. So every time you get rejected, every time you fall, stay down there. Understand why you fell. Because when you stand up, you're going to be more competitive. When you're going to get knocked down again, you stand up. You're going to be more talented. You're going to be more resilient. And each time you get knocked down, what's going to happen is you have to spend less time down there. But we're so worried about what everybody else, when we get knocked down, what they're going to think. They're looking at us, what their perceptions are, and so forth, instead of focusing in on ourselves. We're worried about what everybody else is thinking about our rejections. And instead of thinking about those individuals, well, remember, those individuals never took the chance. They never took their ideas, never took their dreams to the point where they could get rejected.
Yep. I like that. Let me ask you, when you said you knew as a child that you were always going to train professional athletes, that's what you're going to do. Obviously, that's incredible self-belief. Not everyone has that. Is that something that you're born with, do you think? Or can you build that?
This is what I said. I said we're all born relentless, and we're taught to relent. Everything we have is inside of us. You know, confidence is inside of us, success is inside of us, winning is inside of us. But for most individuals, that's where it's going to stay. Because once you start bringing those things out, your life starts to change. Things have to start to adjust. I would say.
But how do you know when to bring that out? Like, was there something as a child that triggered that from you? Like I feel like I had that, but there was a certain point, like in my teenage years, when I was like, okay, I know I want to do this, and I want to do this. And I remember thinking, yeah, I have that goal.
Well, I always say that this is it's a little bit dark, but people are in the situations they are because of how they dealt with trauma in their life. Everybody's gone through trauma. It could be in an early childhood, it could be in your teenage years, it could be later on. The trauma in your life, whether it's be physically, mentally, how you challenged that trauma. Did you run from it? Or actually, did you use it as fuel? Did you use it as power? Did you say, this is not going to break me. It's gonna make me even stronger. You know, I use this example, when you read fairy tales to children, what does every fairy tale have in common? It has a dark forest. It has a dark moment. And in your lives, you're gonna have plenty of dark moments. You're gonna have plenty of dark times. Do you run from them? Or do you learn from them? Do you attack them? Do you go head on and say, listen, I know these dark moments are coming, but in order for me to see the light, I have to be able to conquer the dark first.
What role do you think physical training plays when it comes to mental resilience?
Oh, it has a lot to do. You know, what we did with our athletes is we prepared them so no matter what was thrown at them physically or mentally. See, I combined the physical training and the mental training. Mm-hmm. So I knew the better physical shape they were in, the more resilient they would do. You know, your body is like, it's how you treat your body determines a lot of your success and failures, especially in professional sports. So we want to make sure that the engine is fueled with the correct type of activity, sleep, recovery, and when you have all those things, it makes the mind a lot sharper. So what we're trying to do is the better physical conditioning an individual is in, it shortens the gap between thinking and reacting. Mm-hmm. So, and a lot of things, and now you look at that in business, is a lot of people think about success.
Yeah.
They keep thinking about it, but they never actually do anything about it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know,
yeah,
because it's easy to think about things. It's actually it takes a lot more talent and a lot more ability to take that first step, to put yourself out there. You know you're going to be judged. You know people are going to be talking about you. I would say this: when you start doing what's best for you, you're going to upset a lot of people.
Wow, interesting. What advice would you give to people who really struggle to be disciplined, when it comes to, I guess, physical, but also just daily life, trying to apply themselves to something and they keep falling short?
Well, here's what I say about discipline. Being undisciplined is a discipline.
Okay.
All right? So you choose to be disciplined or you choose to be undisciplined. Mm-hmm. So what happens is we're in a real estate conference.
Yeah.
All right. One of the best in the world. Mm-hmm. So when I think about this is we have the most valuable real estate and it's in between our ears. Okay. Mm-hmm. And when people don't have discipline, well, who's renting space up here that shouldn't be renting space? This is your space for you to occupy. And what we do is we let other individuals, we let other thoughts, we let other feelings, we let other ideas that don't even belong to us. Sometimes we carry a lot of guilt that allows us to be undisciplined. But usually the guilt we're carrying is not our guilt, it's somebody else's guilt that was bestowed onto us. Mm-hmm. So all those different habits, your behaviors, your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, all those different things, you get to choose those things. And if you choose those things, you become more disciplined. If you let other individuals choose those things for you, then you're undisciplined.
Okay. One thing I wanted to ask is, we're hearing a lot about people going through burnout these days, the stress of constantly being on all the time when it comes to technology, media, just the everyday life. It's just everyone wants something yesterday. How far can you push yourself before you are at risk of really causing chronic fatigue?
So this is what I always think about burnout. You don't get burned out from doing the things that you love and enjoy. Burnout comes from having to manage and deal with all the other stuff that you don't enjoy that doesn't allow you to focus in on the things. So in order to avoid burnout, it's not about adding, it's about deleting the things, making choices of the things that don't bring you joy. Well, that you're not focused on. If we're all looking to add things, all right. Well, in order to add things so we don't get burned out, what do you have to delete? And one thing that's very important is, in physical activity, everybody has all these different recovery things, all these different recovery modalities. Obviously there's stretching, there's foam rollers, there's infrared therapy, cold therapy, all that. That's all great. But there's nothing better from recovery and to avoid burnout than sleep. Really? Sleep is the number one thing. But you know what? We're all taught. We read, and on social media, we spend so much time scrolling and doing all these different things. But you know, we correlate lack of sleep with success, because everybody tells you, I only sleep 4 hours a day. I only sleep. No, they don't. You know, that just they're trying to make themselves perceive for you to perceive them in a light that doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
So, and we try to emulate that. Like, people always ask me, well, what's the best time to work out? My answer is whenever you can work out.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, people always talk about, well, I've heard that it's better to work out in the mornings. Well, are you a morning person? No. Well, then don't work out in the morning.
Okay. So do what suits you.
Do what suits you. You find a routine, all right, that suits you, that works for you. My routine isn't going to work for you. I've had when I work with my clients, whether it's business individuals or athletes, some are morning people, some are afternoon, some are evenings, some are 4 a.m., some are 4 p.m. You have to find out what's optimal for that individual, and not what you want to place yourself inside their box. And if you start to place yourself inside their box, that's where the burnout comes, when you're trying to emulate somebody else. Find what works for you.
But if you do have a client who only sleeps 4 hours a night, you might be telling them to sleep more.
We do, and I do have clients that were like that. Definitely like that. So, when we make adjustments. Kobe Bryant was one of those individuals who did not sleep a lot, so we had to incorporate naps into his thing. So we'd have this routine where it'd be certain times. Listen, cell phone, family, everybody. This is your quiet time. Yeah. I need you every single day, or wherever it was, depending on the different time zones we were at. And we adjusted his training depending on the time zone of where he was going to be. So that was also being able to alleviate burnout. I did the same thing over here when I was traveling. Everybody says, from Chicago to LA, which is 4 hours, and then from LA to Brisbane, it's another 16 plus. Everybody goes, oh, you're going to be jet lagged. You're going to be. No, you know what? A week before I decided to take, before we had to leave for this trip, I had already started to adjust my routine. I already started to adjust my sleep. I already started to adjust my sleep patterns. I adjusted my eating patterns. I adjusted everything. Wow. So you know what's coming. Yeah. You know what's coming.
That's discipline.
That's discipline, but that's also how to avoid burnout.
Yes. Yeah.
There's certain activities there's certain responsibilities and activities that are going to come into
and learning to say no, I'd imagine.
It's so important. It's so important. And the thing about saying no is a complete sentence. No, period. And people always say no, and then they have to explain it. Well, if you have to say no and you have to explain it, you don't really mean no.
Yeah.
I have this thing about stop spending time with individuals you don't like, doing things you don't want to do.
I think that's great advice. Yeah. It's something you kind of realize a little bit more as you get older, I think.
Yes.
How precious your time is.
Yes.
Tim Grover, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
This was awesome.
I hope you enjoy the Gold Coast.
No hope. I'm definitely going to enjoy the Gold Coast.